What's up everybody, welcome to today's video. In today's video we're going to take a look at a multitude of different impulse responses. We're going to take a look at some big names such as Celestion Digital, as well as looking into some more independent smaller companies such as OwnHammer, Dr. Bonkers, and Seacow Cabs. But first off, let me show you the full mix which I just made and which we will use as a reference in the later section of the video, where we're actually looking at the different IRs in a full mix and with the isolated guitar tracks. Okay, great. Now this riff is going to be looped in the later section of the video with the full mix using different impulse responses, and also with isolated guitars always using different impulse responses. But before we get to that section, I first want to talk in very generic terms. Yet again, I've done it in some videos before, but if you happen to watch this video as my very first video and you have no clue what an impulse response is, let's first talk about what is actually an impulse response. An impulse response basically captures or mimics the tone of a certain cabinet, microphone, and room constellation. What it actually does is, or what you actually do, is you send out a very short signal through the capturing setup, meaning the cabinet, the microphone, and the room. So that is the impulse. That is where the impulse response naming comes from. So you send the impulse through that recording setup, and then you take the original file and you take the recorded file, and you kind of deconvolving is the process behind it, and you kind of phase them out against each other. And what you're left with is actually a capturing of the air movement which has been done via the recording setup. Yeah. And if you now take this kind of as a blanket and put that on top of sounds, you can basically recreate rooms. This is often used for reverbs, also especially in sound engineering techniques for films or stuff, and we are kind of abusing this feature also to represent or to mimic the cabinet setup. That said, impulse responses are small wave files which you can upload into a so-called impulse response loader program. There are plentiful out there. I'll make a video also on impulse response loaders at some point in time. So if you are looking for very good, absolutely freeware or absolutely free plugins, I highly recommend getting the STL Tones NadIR setup, which is part of the Emissary plugin bundle. I might do a different video on that where I'm only explaining the Emissary plugin bundle, but NadIR basically is from Ignite Amps and STL Tones. They kind of merged together, those two companies, and they brought out the NadIR impulse loader, which is also what I'm using here for the majority of my project, and especially in this particular project. So what I got set up over here, or what I got prepared so far over here, is I have a few different tracks over here, but let's not take a look into the mix over here because I just took STL Tones Amphub plugin, and I just then took a look and just set things up so that we can listen to the mix. Let's move over here to the guitar mono channel. What I have over here is I got the STL Ignite Amphub loaded with the 5153 amplifier. This emulates an EVH 5150, and this is how it would basically sound with the stock settings. So actually decent high gain tone already with the integrated cab section. When we look over here, this is the stock setting, or these are stock cabinet impulse responses which are integrated in Amphub. And what I have over here is that I got a ton of different setups with the NadIR plugin. So I basically have a lot of different impulse response setups, which I'm just going to kind of rush through, speak out my mind, speak out my thoughts to it, and then in the end we're going to get the full comparison, the full big shootout with a full mix setup and with the guitars isolated. Let me first start over here by disabling the Amphub's own cabinet section by double clicking over here. So this is now faded out, or let's say not illuminated that strong anymore, so meaning the cabinet section is off. And careful with your ears, but this is how it sounds like when you have no cabinet impulse whatsoever loaded. So, fairly undecent tone. I'll just ramp down the output a little bit, just that we can hear that hideous tone in its full glory. So you already hear, something is missing, and that is the cabinet impulse, basically, or the cabinet emulation in whatever shape or form that is. Impulse responses basically are EQ curves, which are being blanked like a blanket put over the original guitar signal. So that said, I got different vendors and different IR setups over here. Of course, I cannot walk through the entire packs, which I actually have loaded onto this over here. So I just can briefly walk through. I got the NadIR or the NadIR stock impulses set, or the set of stock impulses. I chose some different impulses than they have loaded by default in here. I got the Bogren IR Pack, which is very sought after. The Eminence DV77 from Eminence Digital. This is not the Christian Cole IR Pack, which I'm very eager and perhaps will soon somehow get my dirty hands on. But this is not the Christian Cole IR Pack. This is the official Eminence DV77 pack. Then we got a small indie developer. I'm not actually sure if he's that small, but I haven't heard of him until recently. Dr. Bonkers. Really cool independent developer. I'll talk about a little bit on that one later. Then we got OwnHammer, the 4x12 MAR-CB from their older series. So 2 years ago or 3 years ago they recorded them. They got their new Revolution series out, which we'll get to in a second. Then we got the Seacow AHV cabinet over here, which I have to rearrange because I changed a little bit on the file folder structure. Forgive me for that. Redwirez ENGL V30, OwnHammer Revolution MRCB V30, and the Celestion V30 Greenback. Okay, let me first load in the NadIR stock impulses. Oh, sorry. I had the entire time the mouse set over the wrong plugin Reaper. Now you can see what's actually going on. So that's already actually a fairly decent tone over here. Nothing wrong with that at all. Of course, there's a lot of room for, I wouldn't say necessarily improvement, but for discovery. Yeah. So let's move over to the Bogren IR Pack. And you can hear, first of all, Bogren IR Pack is way louder than the NadIR stock, and sometimes I have the balance set to only using one of the impulse responses, and sometimes, like here in NadIR, I have a balance between two different impulse responses, so I'm basically having two cabinets running at the same time, or at least two microphones of the same cab running at the same time. Just for your information, just take a careful look to what's going on the screen actually over here as well while listening. And that said, let's move over to from the Bogren, which sounds like this, to the Eminence DV77. So the Eminence DV77 is somewhat special in that respect that it has some very gnarly mids, which I personally don't like that much when playing alone, but I could imagine in a mix that it fits very well. And if it kind of fits, then it's that perfect tone for that respect. Let's move over to Dr. Bonkers. Dr. Bonkers has the speciality, in my personal opinion. He actually makes impulse responses from all the 4 different speakers within a 4x12 constellation, in this case a Mesa Boogie 4x12, and he's actually naming them like bottom right, bottom left, top right, top left, and they all sound a little bit different, which is really cool. Let me just show you what the sound completely looks like over here. Now let me move over that I hopefully can get the same microphone set up. Yeah, so we got here, now we got the bottom right SM57 cap and we got the bottom left SM57 cap. I'll move the balance so that we're only listening to the bottom right. And you now can hear that the right and the left channel sounded, or the bottom left and the bottom right cabinet, sorry, not cabinet, the speaker sounded completely different, even though we have the same recording setup, and this also reflects reality. I know this from recordings with my own band, that they just sound different. The cabinets sound different, and you always have to make sure that you take a look at which one of those speakers in the cabinet sounds best. So this is really cool. This gives you a lot of diversity, a lot of flexibility in shaping your tone into the optimal way. Moving over to OwnHammer. I really love OwnHammer. Awesome plugins for not that much money, and you get also a shit ton of different options over here. A little option paralysis with this one, but if you're kind of knowing what you're doing and you kind of have an idea in which direction you want to go, this is absolutely perfect. So sorry for always playing the same riff. I'm kind of a one-trick pony when it comes to riffing. Moving over to Seacow AHV. Let me pause the video very quickly. I'll get this sorted and then I'll be right back. So there we are again. I just messed around with the file structure. That's why the reference in the plugin was not correctly anymore. This is how, oh, hang on, we're still at OwnHammer. Let me move to Seacow Cap. So this is how OwnHammer sounds, just as another point of reference. And this is how Seacow then sounds. Very cool, very gnarly, you know, that mid-punch over there. But if you don't like those frequencies, can tend to be a little bit annoying, but still very cool cabinet. I like it a lot. Moving over to one of the classics, Redwirez was one of the first companies which were out there making high quality impulse responses. And I think this is the big box pack or something where they got the ENGL V30, and this is what it sounds like. Very cool. Hang on. And now we got the OwnHammer Revolution, which is OwnHammer's latest output over there. I bought the same Marshall cab, which kind of is the same setup like their old thing, and I'm also going to A/B them right after I first give you a listen of what it sounds like right out of the box. So I'll now toggle always between old OwnHammer and new OwnHammer. So OwnHammer. So now we got the old one. Sorry, that was my mistake. Yeah, but there you got kind of a comparative value between the newer OwnHammer and the older OwnHammers. Both are still on sale. Both take a totally different approach, but this would be a video on its own. Yeah, let's move over to Celestion. Celestion Digital is my personal favorite impulse response creator so far, but it's also the one which I play longest with. So maybe that is an unfair comparison, but this is what it sounds like. So, this is a totally unscientific approach of comparing different impulse response creators and developers, and yeah, I'll now just let the full mix shootout run through, and then after that the guitars only shootout, and you'll decide which one you like most. I find every single developer has their own spot and their own place, not only in my heart, but also on the market. Yeah, so that said, let's roll the videos. So, what do you think? Which impulse response or which developer sounded best to you? Which cabinet impulse response sounded best to you? Let me know down below in the comments. I would highly appreciate if you would like, share, and subscribe this video if you actually enjoyed it and if you learned something out of it. I'm thinking about making more on impulse response in general. Also thinking about making some cool videos where I'm going to show you what kind of tones I can get out of free plugins. Not that I'm saying that I'm any reference to that, but I think that I might deliver something interesting to the plate. So thank you very much for watching. Everybody stay safe, take care of yourself, and see you back then.